Well, welcome back. Really an interesting chapter. This is one we don't study real often, but it's actually reproductive systems. We talk about the male and the female reproductive system, and human anatomy. This is a really it's important, and there's a lot of particular things in here. Once again, we've been having this whole you know, and I don't have to tell you because you've been taking the second half of human anatomy, but there is a ton of stuff in here, and you guys have just been learning. You've just been learning a ton of stuff. Now, the neat thing is that biology 2:12, human anatomy 2, is an introduction to everything. And so, if you're into nursing or whatever you're going to take, if you're into if it's going to be science education, if it's going to be whatever it is you're taking. You may be taking this as a general course as part of your science. If so, you're getting this broad overview. But if you're taking it for some kind of medical application, then you'll be taking classes afterwards that will take this stuff and apply what you know. So that's really good. But wow, we've just been having something every week. It's been a busy class. So once again, chapter 22. We're getting towards the end. We're getting closer. And so you've already looked through this. You've done all those practice problems. You're hanging in there on those. You're doing great on those. Some of you are doing a better job than others. If you've been getting A's on those, 90s and above, then you're doing great. If you're getting 70s, then you're probably not spending quite as much time taking a look at the material. But I'm going to cover once again. I'm going to cover a real condensed area. Knowing that you've already gotten everything else from the chapter. The key thing we got to talk about in the human reproductive system has to do with chromosomes. Okay, so we've got to pass on the DNA. We've got to have the male, okay, sperm and the female egg. We've got to combine those to form the zygote. And they've got to take the genetic code, and we've got to have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So what happens is, we have to have half of them from the dad and half of the chromosomes from the mom, and as you know, that word is haploid, Haploid. So we've got to make sure that when we have the DNA of the sperm and the DNA of the egg, that they have half the number of chromosomes, so when they come together, they make a complete set of human chromosomes. Okay, so let's start. We're going to cover some of these things, and once again, you'll have a test at the end of this one. Don't know how many questions. We'll cover several things, but the test will primarily come from this video. Okay, so once again, let's talk about this. Okay, this is one of the haploid questions. During spermatogenesis, okay, which means the development of sperm, which stage is the first to be haploid, okay? So which stage is first to be haploid in the number of chromosomes? So, all right, so once again, so we're talking about spermatogenesis, the development of the sperm, and what is the first to be haploid? And it's actually the secondary spermatocyte, okay? So we have the primary spermatocyte that's formed, and then as we break it down, okay, then we get the secondary spermatocyte, and that's the first sperm that's haploid. Okay, haploid meaning half the number of chromosomes, and that's where we want to get it. We got to get it to haploid. Okay, so the secondary spermatocyte is the first process of spermatogenesis where the sperm is haploid. Okay, haploid in the number of chromosomes, meaning half of what we need. Okay. Now, what portion of the sperm cell contains the 23 chromosomes? Okay, because we need 23 pairs. Well, it's in the head. Okay, so we have the different parts of the sperm. The head of the sperm actually contains 23 chromosomes. Okay, which is haploid. All right. Now, males have a number of internal accessory organs. All right, and it says which one is responsible for secreting fluid containing fructose and prostaglandins, all right? And that's the seminal vesicles. So the seminal vesicles actually produce, once again, The seminal vesicles are internal accessory organs in the male, which are responsible for secreting fluid containing fructose and prostaglandins, okay, which is a fluid that we carry the sperm in. Now, the prostate, all right, the prostate gland lies at the inferior base of the urinary bladder. We'll come in and talk a little bit more about the prostate, but when you know where it's located, the prostate gland, okay. Well, now, anytime you hear the word gland, you know that we're producing something, okay? A gland produces something. So the prostate gland lies at the inferior base of the urinary bladder, okay? Now, let's talk about this. How many mature functional follicles, okay, will a female produce in a lifetime? All right. So once again, you know from your chapter and reading this, when we talk about a follicle, the uterus comes in, and we actually develop. Okay, we actually develop this follicle, and we develop an egg from that follicle that develops from the uterus. We'll talk a little bit more about that too. So how many mature functioning follicles will a female produce in a lifetime? It's kind of interesting. The answer is 400. So a female in a lifetime produces 400 mature functional follicles. So I'm sure it's probably a little bit more, a little bit less, but that's the number. It's kind of interesting. Okay, now let's keep moving. The corpus luteum, L-U-T-E-U-M, is formed following ovulation. Okay. So what are we talking about there? Okay, the corpus, C-O-R-P-U-S, luteum, L-U-T-E-U-M, is formed following ovulation. So once we have ovulation and that egg comes down in there, then we form the corpus luteum. All right. Now the ovary is the source of the female sex steroids. Okay. So what does the ovary do? Well, the ovary also produces the eggs, which travel through the fallopian tubes. But the ovary is also the source of female sex steroids. Okay? All right, we're doing good. Now, the blastocyst, B-L-A-S-T-O-C-Y-S-T, the blastocyst is the early pre-embryonic stage that implants in the uterine lining. Okay, so let's talk about this. Okay, once again, the blastocyst, B-L-A-S-T-O-C-Y-S-T, is the early pre-embryonic. So what is pre-embryonic? Pre-embryo stages, all right, that implants in the uterine lining, all right. So what that means is this uterine lining, okay, as soon as we have an egg and that egg becomes fertilized, then it's pre-embryonic, okay. So then we form the blastocyst. Now all of a sudden, okay, now let's say that the female, let's say the female produces this egg, the ovary produces the egg. The ovary produces the female steroids, which starts everything in motion and begins to prepare for if that egg is fertilized. Okay. Now these hormones and these steroids react different if we make a zygote, which means that we have a contact, which means the egg and the sperm, and we form a zygote. But regardless, we have this uterine wall. Now, if the egg is not fertilized, okay, or we have some type of something that tells it that it's not fertile, okay, or something's wrong, then the uterine lining, okay, separates, comes out, and that's where the female experiences the period, okay, all right. But if we have a pre-embryonic stage, then we have the blastocyst, and all of a sudden things begin to change, okay, and we begin a whole new process. Now, the detection of the hormone, okay, HCG, all right, that's human, and I may butcher the saying because I always just say HGC is the abbreviation here, but it's human, CHORIONIC, chorionic, okay, and then it's GONADATROPHIN, okay, so it's a gonadotrophin, okay, but and even on your test, it'll give you the full name, but it'll give you HGC, okay? So the detection of the hormone, okay, HCG, okay, once again, HCG is the hormone that is the basis for the pregnancy test. So whenever we have a pregnancy test, it's a urine test, and the female urinates. They put this stick in there, and when that happens, we look for a color change. Okay, so that's the hormone HCG. Okay, and that is the basis for the pregnancy test. Now, what that means is, and the reason why this works is because I was telling you a while ago that if the egg is fertile and the egg is fertilized, okay, then we have these hormones that begin the operation and begin to prepare the female, okay, and begin to go through the changes that occur as the female begins to act as and I don't want to dehumanize this, but as an incubator for the fertilized egg. Okay. Now, of course, when we talk about the primary sex organs, those are called the gonads. Okay. So gonads are the primary human sex organs. All right. Now let's talk about in the male, the scrotum can be considered an extension of the abdominal wall. Okay. So the scrotum can be considered as an extension of the abdominal wall. And when we talk about that, okay, it says, which factor favors spermatozoa development? And the answer is temperature of 34 degrees Celsius. All right? So when we look that up and we say 34 degrees Celsius, we're talking about around 97 degrees Fahrenheit. And so the human body is 98.6. So the development of sperm occurs at about 97, about 93. Yeah, you know what? I was sitting here doing the math in my head, and my camera person is a math teacher, so we were doing this. So it's around 93 or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So what does that mean? That means that the sperm has to be produced outside of the body. That's why the male gonads, or the male sex organs, actually have to have the testes outside of the body, because if the sperm can't be produced inside the body because it's too hot. So 98.6 actually is a problem for the sperm, okay, all right? But the temperature for it is what factor favors spermatozoa development. It's 34 degrees Celsius. And let's do one more here. Which male accessory gland lies inferior, okay, what does that mean, below the urinary bladder? Okay, now I asked you this a while ago, so we have this twice. And surrounds the urethra like a donut, okay? And this is the prostate gland, all right? So the prostate gland is found in males, okay? We talked about it a while ago, okay? But it lies inferior to the urinary bladder, that's a key. And then it surrounds the urethra, okay? The urethra is the tube, okay, from which we actually urinate, okay? Surrounds it like a donut. It's the prostate gland. Well, we're going to stop with video 1 there, and I'll pick you up with video 2 here in just a little bit.